you guys for being here. So we've got we're bringing back the Common Ground panel, and there's been a lot of great work going on in recent months across different jazz organizations in the city. So we're eager to hear from you guys how things are going and get an update. So thanks for being here.
Sounds good. All right, we are a small crowd, but a mighty one. I know parking's tricky down here, but hopefully we'll get this recorded and people can get an update as to where we are. What we're about tonight is trying to get an update about some of the really important work that's been going on among the different jazz organizations, trying to present a new united front as we head into the World Cup, and obviously a pivotal time for the music, pivotal time for all the groups here. And so that's what we're going to try to do, is get a fresh idea where we stand right now. Let me introduce this distinguished panel. Way down to my left, James McGee is the creative director for the Mutual Musicians Foundation International. Next to him, B.J. Jansen, president of Kansas City Jazz Alive. Holding down the middle, Rick Truman of the Folly Theater. He heads the Folly Theater. Next to Rick, Eboni Fondren, Music and Entertainment LLC. And then right next to me, Lee Drummett. He's with the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra. Let's have our huge audience give them all a round of applause for taking time here tonight. Yeah. Well, it is a thrill to be in this space, though. I mean, thanks for having us. This is always special to be here, and you always hear this, but you feel the vibe, and you can't help but feel the vibe here. Well, BJ, you've been sort of the ringleader for a lot of this, pulling the groups together, regular update meetings. Why don't you lead off? Where are we? Where do things stand? We're obviously, 3 months from World Cup, so we're getting there.
Yes. So
thank you very much. Let's give BJ a round of applause. Yeah.
So what I'll say is thank you, Steve, for lighting a fire on, when was that, last October?
Yeah.
You know?
I hope so.
Yeah. So I think as we were all leaving that meeting, we felt highly motivated to make something happen. And
is something happening?
Something is happening. A lot of things are happening, in fact. And so this group, which you'll notice from the last time we met, this is a different group. There's some of the same, some of the different players, some new players. There's some that weren't able to make it tonight. But I would say if we got the full group here, we'd probably need another table like this, at least.
And that's exciting in and of itself.
That's exciting. And so we're meeting monthly. We're sharing what each organization is working on. We're working together. We're trying to find what are some of those symbiotic areas where we can support each other and what we're doing, not work against each other unintentionally, and really figure out what are those things that we can do together to bring jazz to life in Kansas City. And I would say there's some really big things that are coming up. Some of them I don't think I can talk about some of them today, can I, Emily? But there's some big things that are on the near horizon around FIFA, and we're wanting to have all the organizations involved in that. And beyond that, it's really about just finding what does everybody uniquely do well, and how can we support each other. So,
well, Rick, you've been part of this. From your vantage point, how do you think it's going? What kind of momentum do you see right now?
I think the biggest thing that I've been getting out of meeting regularly is that sense of not being in it alone. Sometimes it feels like we're pulling teeth to get people into our venues and into events, and there's a core people who love what we do. And then sometimes you can't get past that core. And so just to be in a room, virtual room, with everybody else and hearing the same challenges they're having, and I tried this and that worked for me, or I tried this and it didn't work. That to me has been the biggest help so far, is that sense of camaraderie and working together.
James McGee, weigh in here.
Yeah. I might have a different perspective just because of, the daily work that I do, especially from the Mutual Musicians Foundation. But first, I want to thank KC Jazz Live for even reaching out and bringing us in. Because Steve, as you very well know, and other people may know, the Mutual Musicians Foundation kind of functions in its own galaxy or whatever, because of our late hours and our non-traditional business. So for them to reach out and really include us in these conversations in this group has been a big step for us, because we usually function in a much more private manner, but we're looking this year to increase those partnerships. And this is a great way to do it, because with KC Jazz Alive, we're partnering with everybody at once, or at least we have the opportunity to do that. So I see that as one of the major developments that is going to help not only the Mutual Musicians Foundation, but the Kansas City jazz community as a whole. Because it's like you have to have all the pieces. And, nobody likes to say, well, we always look at the foundation as grandpa. It's like you got him set off to his chair to the side. You know what I'm saying? It's like we know we're not doing, we're the spot that everybody comes when everything else is over. So it's good to have that piece involved. And we're just really at a place as an organization where we want to be able to support whatever anyone else has going on and offer our resources, our building, our brain trust. So we look at that as forward movement. So when you ask, has there been progress or what has been moved, to us, that's a big thing.
So for you guys, always being on your own, in your own galaxy, to use your word, maybe you're better off if you surround yourself with some other partners who are in the same world as you are.
We will see.
And what do you mean?
Because it's a new endeavor, right?
Okay.
So we don't know until we produce the fruit of what comes from the relationships, right? Yeah. We're hopeful, about what can come from it. But, I don't have a crystal ball. And we have, you always have different entities and people with different varying opinions. And it's just like jazz as a whole. I mean, like one person's definition is this, another's that. You try to find some type of symmetry and align yourselves, even if it's not with everything 100%. Even if we can find 1 or 2% to agree on and work that'll be great. And I think that's what we're looking for now. And that's what we're opening ourselves up for the availability and the opportunity to do.
I want to come back and ask you about the World Cup and where you stand with that. Eboni Fondren, you do a lot of stuff with Jazz Ambassadors. Are you the head of Jazz Ambassadors? President. I'm sorry, I should have said that in the opening. What's your perspective on this moment in terms of the groups pulling together and trying to move forward together?
Yeah, I think it's important for the strengths of each organization to be highlighted, and I think that's what's beautiful about the Jazz Orgs coming together. My focus, is we've got our Jam magazine, and we really want people to be a part of that and use that as a tool to get whatever's going on in your organization out to the community, to get members, to just highlight artists. And so that's something that one of my focus as the new president is membership and getting that Jam magazine out, and just how we can cross-partner, trade, or whatever it is with the other organizations to help support the scene. So I think it's really great. We can share ideas, like Rick said, bounce suggestions and strategies off of one another. And then we also, know what each organization is doing. And so we're not piggybacking or stepping on, dates and events because we share a calendar and we can see, oh, they've got this going on, and oh, we should come to that. That'd be really cool. Hey, can we set up a table and talk about this? And oh, you guys are doing this, and I think that's really cool too, to be able to just know what each organization is doing so we can help support in any way.
And to underscore, I think what's obvious here is that hasn't always been the case.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, and it's one of those things, as an artist, kind of being on the outside, not being involved in any organizations for a while, and kind of seeing, and learning and asking questions and understanding what each organization is doing, and thinking about how I want to get involved, and reading and learning and educating myself about, how I want to be able to advocate for the scene, traveling outside of the country, seeing other scenes, how they look at Kansas City, and how very important that became to me to want to stress that to people, what people see when they think about the Kansas City jazz scene, versus the people that just live here and maybe take it for granted. I want to highlight that it's a world-known location for jazz, and I think sometimes that people in the city forget about that.
But I assume a lot of the visitors coming here in a couple months will be well
Absolutely.
aware of what you just said.
Well, yeah, but then we've got, and I think collectively, we've got to make sure that we've got things for them to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna get there in just a moment. Well, Lee, tell us about the KC Jazz Orchestra. What's your 2 cents on this moment?
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing a lot of momentum. Man, in the last 6 months, we just sold out 2 shows in a row at the Kauffman Center, which,
great.
yeah, that's hard to do. And we've done that with our Charlie Brown, but also, a Luther Vandross tribute, which had a great diverse audience, and we're selling well to the upcoming Benny Goodman with Annette Cohen this weekend.
Right.
So we're seeing great momentum. We're also really, really excited about our weekly programming called the New Jazz Order, which we started in February at the Westport Theater. We're now to the Westport Flea Market because the Westport Theater is taking a hiatus. And so every Tuesday evening, we have about 30 musicians, anywhere from middle schoolers to Clint Ashlock and these veteran jazz musicians who are playing big band music. And it is awesome. And I saw an 8th grader last night take a trumpet solo that would blow you away. And I can't wait to see what he's doing when he's a senior in high school or in New York or maybe Kansas City. So we're really excited about that. And then we're really excited about the partnerships we have with the other folks at the table. And
that has a newish tinge to it too. Am I sensing Ebony sort of saying that? And
yeah, I mean, we've started working with the Folly. We were all of our shows were our signature series was at Kauffman until 2 or 3 years ago, and I think we've really built a great partnership with the Folly, and we're going to continue doing that. We have again the show coming up this weekend, and we with KC Jazz Alive and the Folly, the Charlie Parker concert, which will be in August, and then we're working with KC Jazz Alive on a couple of initiatives and the city's open program, so which we'll hear about, I'm sure, in this program.
so speaking of successes in terms of programming, I just mentioned to you, right before we started here that, Rick, you guys had that Miles Davis tribute just 2 or 3 weekends ago on a Sunday afternoon at 3:30. I was worried I was going to think it was 7 o'clock. I'm going to miss it altogether. But it was almost sold out, you said.
Yeah, almost sold out. It was a huge turnout in the last.
Did you expect that?
Exploded.
Why did it explode in the last week?
I thought it would sell well, but in the last week, I think we sold 150 tickets in the last week to week and a half.
That's how Kansas City.
Which
That's
is
how Kansas City goes to
maddening.
concerts.
Yes, but it's yeah,
Raises
it's
your blood pressure.
Like the last day, it's like, oh, we gotta go.
Well, that
like-
is a trend we're seeing, though, where people aren't subscribing as much, and they're buying tickets in the last week before the show. You can expect that.
I assume that adds to the nervousness around shows like that.
Oh,
if
yeah,
they're not
'cause
buying
you
it.
can't count on it.
You
I
can't
mean,
count on it, yeah.
I think that for that particular show, I think the Sunday afternoon was helpful, but I think the fact that Miles Davis is one of the most well-known names in jazz was really what sold it, because Lakeisha Benjamin was at the theater in November and gave an amazing concert. I couldn't give tickets away, and it was just heartbreaking because she poured her whole soul on that stage, and we had 250 people in the house,
Right.
And so you think, oh, they're going to buy at the last minute, and then that last week when they're not moving, it's panic time. So.
Okay, well, let's bear down here a little bit, because what I'm hearing here tonight is broad agreement that there's more coordination, there's more partnership, there's more of a spirit of cooperation than perhaps we've seen for a while. And I'm wondering how that translates, because in recent months with this discussion series, we've talked about pay, we've talked about the need for Kansas City to develop a music office, we've talked about FIFA, We've talked about a word I'm looking at here, and I can't quite read what I wrote, but there was something else we talked, or coordination too. But as we head, let's start with the World Cup. As we head into the World Cup, BJ, you know, are we prepared to capitalize? Are we going to capitalize? You know, we had high hopes 4, 5, 6 months ago. Are we going to realize that? Is there going to be momentum coming out of the World Cup? Lots of big questions. I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay. So there's one thing that I can't fully disclose at this time,
Well, hint.
and I will hint, but I'll say a music hub that's going to be open to multiple organizations. And can I say more, Emily?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay,
That was
so,
already out in the public.
It's not, yeah, isn't it public?
okay, so essentially what we're doing is we're going to have a physical space during FIFA.
Right.
So, and we're inviting multiple organizations to partner with us and co-opt with that space to present pretty much a wide, multiple arts scenario. It's not just going to be jazz. It's going to be all kinds of music for Kansas City.
How did this come together?
Well, this is from the Open Cities, the Open Doors initiative. And so, you know, as part of this collaboration, and I just wanted to touch on one thing that James said, like, you know, we haven't come to see the full fruits of what we're doing. And James kind of came in a little bit later into this than we all wanted. And I'm glad you came in. But what I will say is, this is a game changer to be able to bring all the orgs, have some sort of physical space that we can all work through whatever we want to do, whenever we want to do it during that time period, and see how we can bring that forward continually.
Who's gonna staff it? What's it gonna look like?
Well, so we don't have all the details worked out, but we're partnering with multiple organizations, and it's coming together very fast.
So when we've talked so many times over the months about the need for a music office in Kansas City, what I'm hearing you say is this is walking right down that road.
Kind of.
Why do you say, okay,
I
help
don't
me,
think
explain
I
that.
wouldn't really call it a music office, but it has the potential to become one potentially.
Ebony, you're shaking your head.
Well, just only from like I just spent the last 3 months on a task force for the city reviewing the music strategy that was submitted, and you know, at a lot of meetings, taking on a lot of heat, even though I didn't write the thing, but trying to get everybody kind of on the same page as far as that, and taking all those suggestions and putting them into a proposal of what we felt would, you know, to go to the city, because it sort of lives in the city's hands. And then the question is that this music office, is it city ran? Is it a commission? Is it, you know, does it live with organizations? Like the best way, because there are a lot of sort of caveats that go with a city office of music, because there's, you know, there's things about regulation, and there's things about equal pay, and there's things about licenses, and there's things about nighttime, you know, curfews, and just there's so many things that go into that where that lives is the big question.
So you're saying you're not sure if there's going to be a commission, if there's going to be, or we don't know what it's
We
going
don't
to
know.
look like going forward.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Well, and what I'll say though is, like, you know, I wouldn't view it in the same sense of maybe what you were thinking of it as, Steve. And so there is that parallel work that's going on. And one of the great things and great outcomes so far of this collaborative group is the ability to discuss that. Like Jake brought the plan forward. We were able to review it. We were able to chat about it. We were able to get feedback on it from the work that Ebony's been doing. You know, and then we were also had the opportunity to support it.
Which is great.
You know, so I think the work is moving forward, but having the space to come together and actually talk about it, sort of that round table, I think that's the thing that maybe has been missing that now we're having. So all these opportunities are coming as a result.
It's an important step forward
Right.
toward perhaps
Right.
a music
It's a-
office, because one idea that I've heard so consistently in these conversations that seemed to have a lot of support, unanimous support, if I will, is this idea of a music office at City Hall. That seemed to be something that everybody was saying, we got to have it. And Eboni, I'm hearing you saying, we ain't there yet, but
Well, again, it's because you have to think about changing administrations and like if it's living at City Hall and one administration is all for it and all about it and they're loving it, and then the next administration comes and then they're like, music what, jazz who, you know what I mean? So then it's like it's got to be in a place where it can be sustained no matter what the administration, what administration is in office, because we don't want all the work that everybody's doing to go down by the wayside if a change of administration comes in. And then, you know what I mean, then this office is just not as important as it was in the last administration.
well, help me here. I mean, is this current administration under Mayor Lucas, is he for this?
He's not for or against it. It's because it's not there to make a decision on.
Okay, it's not there
You know
yet.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're just putting in the recommendation of what the next step should be. And that was one of the suggestions.
So when, staying on this idea just for a second more, one more question. So when we talk to members of the city council about this idea of a jazz or a music office, what kind of response is that conversation happening?
There's no talk. I mean, like I'm saying, we're still in the
Okay.
process of submitting the recommendation.
Yeah.
So no formal decisions have been made.
Are you discouraged or encouraged by that process you
I'm
just went
encouraged,
through?
but I'm very much encouraged, but I literally don't have an answer because we're just in the stages of reviewing the strategy that was submitted by Creative City and that everybody's been discussing, and then we got together to talk about taking in feedback from musicians and educators and people on boards and everybody that has submitted feedback, and then put together our sort of summation of all of that and submit it, and that's literally where we are.
So what you're saying is that like almost every big issue in America today, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. Am I hearing that right?
Yes. But it's all positive. It's moving. That's the good thing.
That ain't nothing, right?
That ain't nothing.
That ain't
it's
nothing.
moving, and that's good.
Yeah.
Because you can sit around in meetings and boards and round tables and talk.
Yeah.
And it's finally at a place where it is moving,
That's great.
there are feet
I
on
like
it.
that.
You know what I mean? And that was the ultimate goal.
So I'm wondering, as we sit here and talk, Lee, Rick, James, folks who oversee or work very closely with these prominent jazz organizations, as we head into the World Cup, where do we stand? Are you ready to receive the world? Are we not ready to receive the world? Are you ready to capitalize on this? Is there a way to capitalize on it, Rick, at the Folly Theater? Give me your sense.
We're working on it, which is almost sad and embarrassing to say that we're 6 weeks out and I say we're working on it. But I mean, the biggest concern is how do we cut through the noise? We can put together the most exciting, coolest thing that people coming into Kansas City would want to be a part of, but how do we get people to want to come into our doors when there's so many other things going on? And that's the nut that we haven't cracked to make people go, yeah, it's worth investing $100,000 into to have something running during that.
So we're 6 weeks out. How are you navigating that decision then? What do you see happening with the Folly in the next month as you approach, I guess, some kind of deadline here where you got to figure out what you're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, basically, what my board has said is come back to us with a specific number of what you think this is going to take, and we're going to decide whether we want to take the risk on that. And that's what I'm putting together in the next week.
What I'm also hearing from a lot of people when I do the show every day is, if I'm putting myself in your position, Rick, you don't really know what's coming down the pike here, do you?
Right.
I mean, you don't, are the people really going to materialize? Yeah. Are they going to want to come to the Folly Theater on a evening to hear somebody? I mean, I imagine you're playing guess-o-matic here.
Absolutely, and there's no real data to say, are people going to be here all week? Are they going to only come in on Thursday and be here for the weekend? I mean, we have somebody on our board who was the president of, well, Catherine Holland is on our board, and she was key in getting the World Cup, Kansas City to be a World Cup city, whatever the organization is that did that. Pardon me for not remembering. And she's even said, we got nothing. I mean, nobody's ever seen a footprint this big across 17 cities and three countries, one continent. Nobody can predict how that's all going to play out. And so it is just a big gamble.
Yeah.
So you still haven't made a call here yet, if I'm
No.
hearing.
No.
I feel your pain. I mean, I get what you're describing, and I mean, James, here you're selling a place that would give anyone coming from around the world a taste of the real stuff, the real place where jazz happened. You've made some programming changes recently. Tell us, like, how you plan to capitalize on what might be coming down the pike here with the World Cup.
Yeah, well, one of the main things we did in preparation for World Cup was last year we implemented what we call regular museum hours or museum hours. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., we just opened our doors to the public. Free of charge, if people want to donate, they could, but it's free of charge, no admittance, hosting school groups and different tours. So that was a big barrier for us to get over, because if you're known as the late night weekend place,
You're known as that.
Yeah, how do you get people to just all of a sudden start coming in on a Tuesday or Wednesday?
Are they coming?
Yeah, so it's been a trickle. And I say that because some days we'll have 10 people come in, and then one week we'll have 2 people come in. So it's been a trickle, not to mention that we're dealing with the parking and traffic. So we started at a weird time, but we were like, we got to do it at some time, and we might as well start now where it's a little slower. So when we're in 2026 and World Cup comes, at least we'll have the infrastructure down on how this needs to operate, the kind of staffing we need, any suggestions we've gotten from the public. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are you offering music during those daytime
Wednesdays,
hours?
yes. So on Wednesdays, we have a jazz matinee that's from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. So that's something else we introduced. That started this year. So there was like a tiered approach to it. It was like, first, let's open up just to be available to people if they want to come, journalists, people that want to write about it, school groups or touring. Let's be open and see how that looks, because that was a big deal for us. Then we implemented the musical programming piece to it on Wednesdays, because that was something that we got feedback from, people asking for. One thing we do here is we try to make sure we're listening to what people are asking for. We try to avoid sitting in our board meetings and dictating what we think the people want. We let them tell us, like, what do you want to see? And after we've done that kind of thing, we kind of assess that and use that to add programming to it. One thing I was fortunate enough to be able to do was, over the last year and a half or so, I've traveled to about 4 cities on behalf of the foundation, just specifically to go meet with venue owners, World Cup, FIFA people, to see how are the demographics working. Because like you said, the thing is, there's so much information, there's no information, because it's so big, So I had to go to individual cities like Los Angeles, like Dallas, like Boston, to kind of get on the ground and talk to them about how they were doing things. And the first thing I found was everybody's got the same story. We don't know what's going on. So I'm like, okay, in LA, they don't know what's going on, so I don't feel so bad. And they're hosting the Olympics. But I was able to get all that data from those different entities and kind of formulate a game plan for the Mutual Musicians Foundation. Mm-hmm. That's what we did to do. We knew that we wouldn't be able to sit back and just rely on the information that was passed to us through media or even our local KC 2026 here. They do a great job, but they can only do so much. They can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. So that's what we did to kind of plan for that. And to answer your question, I think we're ready for it, but I think any business or organization that already has a stable infrastructure is going to benefit from it. Where I think the difficulty is going to come with is anybody that's new that hasn't done anything, that thinks they're going to, World Cup's going to come and they're just going to as we say, hit a lick. You know what I'm saying? That's not going to happen.
right.
You know, if you have something in place, I think there's a better chance of you kind of using that net to catch more of what you're already doing. Yeah.
So as you go into the World Cup, what is going to happen here? Are you going to expand the program even farther?
So there'll be performances every day that we're open. So the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday performances, 3 matinees a week. We're probably going to extend the matinee hours too. So it'll probably go from being the 1 to 3 to 1 to 5 or something like that. We're always going to keep a little bit different hours because as Eboni mentioned earlier, we don't want to recreate what somebody else might already be doing. We always try to have a little bit of a niche in what we do. And for the last 5 years, we've had, especially a lot of seasoned and senior groups say, we need something that happens between 12 and 5 p.m.
Oh, yeah. No,
That's what we need.
And,
So, yeah.
And you began the conversation by saying you're known for being the place that's open in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to suck it up to get down here a few times, and it's wonderful. But so you have you have to get the word out about what's happening here, because I don't think a lot of people are aware of what you're doing.
Yeah, no, and that's really a what I would consider a public-private partnership. So of course we're starting to open up for support for like NTDF. So when we go for those types of grants and resources, that's mostly what we're looking for is marketing and PR piece. We have the sauce as far as the musicians and things. We want to get the word out, so we're strategically creating those communication partnerships, like with Visit KC. I'm probably at the Visit KC office once a week. Like I don't. Everybody may not be able to afford the ability to do this, but the foundation has me in a situation where I am constantly at these meetings, in people's faces, talking to them, figuring out how we can get in their network. And that takes a lot of work, but now I'm seeing like, well, that's kind of what it takes for us to kind of expand outside of where we're at. Yeah.
You know, I don't mean this to be self-serving, but I'm thinking as you're talking, underwriting at KCUR wouldn't be a bad thing.
No, absolutely.
They're your peeps right there.
And we've just to kind of not to go too much into it, but in the current position we're in, as I mentioned, we're a small organization.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, we have two sides. Like we have the Inc. side, which is the 501c7, and that's more of the social fraternal organization for the musicians who owns the asset. And then we have the international side, which is the 501c3, public-facing programming. So we're using that as the vehicle to be able to bring in other people from the community in an advisory board manner to help us with that. Hey, where there's KCUR underwriting, there's this, because I'm one person, and you know the history of the foundation. We function on a shoestring and one person, and that's not the best formula when you're trying to grow. So that's where we're at as far as trying to tap into those resources we have, like underwriting at KCUR.
Yeah.
But so I agree with that for sure.
One more before I come to Lee on this. The obvious question. You know, there's a lot of construction, maybe you've noticed here in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
3 months from now, where are we going to be with this? Because what we're being told, what Emily's being told is that, hey, workers are saying it's going to be done, no problem, don't worry about it. Are you worried about it? Is it going to be done?
Yeah. Well,
Because if it's not done, that's a problem.
Well, I've been through so much, I don't worry about anything. So, I'll just be honest with you. I don't, we have to work with what we have. If it's one thing I learned, especially about being here in the 3rd District, is your city council people can do so much, your public works people can do so much, your government representatives, but your organization as a private entity needs to be able to prepare for however it may come and capitalize on it. We had a big press conference this morning about what the 18th and Vine activation was going to look like for World Cup, and that was one of the main questions. Street closures and parking. My official word from the city is they'll be done June 1st. The parking structure will be ribbon cutting on May 22nd. So we're right at the line, So we've already started making plans for communication to specifically put out to people how to get to our location. We know that we're going to have to over-communicate. We can't just say, we're in the historic 18th and Vine District. We have to tell them there is parking on 19th and Woodland, street parking. Like most of our events that go out now have very detailed parking about, so, and some people don't want to read that, but at least we're giving them the information. So that gives us a little comfort, and that's the best we can do,
Fingers crossed, right? Yeah. Lee, tell us about the Jazz Orchestra and what you have planned. How ready are you to capitalize on all this?
Yeah, we to echo what we've heard a lot is now's the time, now's the time, and we're starting to get a lot of calls.
Yeah.
There's a song now
yeah.
that now's the time. I
Now's
know.
the time.
Yeah, that's a good idea for a song. Yeah.
Ebony could.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But we anticipate that our big band, the full band, will play maybe 2, maybe 3 shows. That would be optimistic in the month of June, maybe into July. And that we're going to be sending out some quintets, septets to various venues. So, and we'll be partnering with the Open Doors program with KC Jazz Live, we hope. So I think we're going to be very active, and Alyssa's working very hard on getting that together, and we're working with the Folly perhaps on a potential date. That's very early, but and then we have our ongoing series at Tomstown in my jazz era that we expect to have a show or 2 during that period of time. The reason I guffawed when he said June 1st is we have a show at the Gem Theater on May 30th.
Yeah.
And that's our gala night.
You're out of luck. You're a day early.
At the Xiaobi Art Center, and we're going to have people hopefully walking
From there to here.
from
I'm actually
there.
planning that.
Yeah, and Ebony's our event planner for that. So we've been told it's going to be open and everything will be good by then. So let's hope for good weather.
BJ, as we're talking here, what I'm thinking is, I'm hearing a lot of uncertainty still, a lot of groups really not knowing how to navigate this moment. I'm just asking, Jazz Alive can do some things, can't do others, but is there a role for Jazz Alive to help these organizations navigate what's looking like a pretty murky next few weeks to figure all this out?
I think the main way we can help is by continuing to bring people together, because we don't know what we don't know, but there's so much great stuff that's happening, and everybody's positioning themselves to capitalize where they can. I think just knowing what each person is doing, having that space to bounce ideas off of, or to ask for help, I think is going to be key.
Can KC 2026 help with this uncertainty? I'm hearing that you guys are talking a lot to different groups, but is that the answer here? Can they help? Can they help KC 2026, the group that's putting on the World Cup?
From my experience with that group, one, they do a great job of at least gathering information and communicating at the designated times that they allow people to come to meetings. The implementation, I think what we might want to look at in the future when we have another big event like this is the transparency regarding how much of the lift is going to be on organizations and entities outside of those. Because when the city names, hey, we have this KC 2026, they're taking care of everything, then we're thinking, okay, well, we just need to prepare ourselves for what they put down when they reach out, right? And it doesn't happen. So what was it last week? We got, the invite about submitting for musical acts and things like that. But I think
tell us what that is before you move away from that, because that's not insignificant.
Yeah, it was a call for artists to be a part of the KC House, which is where they're hosting a lot of the dignitaries that are coming in from around the world for World Cup. Down there on the plaza at the old Forever 21.
Forever 21 space.
Yeah, right up by Chris Cheesecake Factory. Yeah, so they've repurposed that building to be a host venue for those people, VIPs and dignitaries, and they've reached out to the arts community to have artists, musicians, vocalists, of different disciplines to come in and entertain and provide entertainment.
So there's that. We talked a few months ago about this idea of jazz artists at the airport, jazz artists on the plaza, jazz artists downtown.
Yeah.
What do we know, BJ? Any clarity on any of that? Is that any of that happening?
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I think
That was. I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
I think that's kind of one of the
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
Is like, how do we coordinate that stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you know, like, and I mean, my opinion with the KC House, while it's great, and I know that they met and talked about it, at the end of the day, they still had artists submit their own pricing and their own proposal.
Yeah, yeah.
So at the end of the day, we don't know if it's going to become a pricing thing, or if they're going to put, you know, how
Yeah.
they're going to staff this. Is
Yeah.
it based on who's the, you know, cheapest, who's the got the best social? Like nobody knows. All you know is you're submitting to the blind.
Yeah.
You know, when, in my opinion, if you had a budget and you kind of could set some sort of, I don't know, but and then there was also another one that came out, not from this particular KC House, but from FIFA in general, and it was, you had a week. I found out about it like a week ago to just submit recommendations, and then you would put on a spreadsheet, and then they would go through the spreadsheet and call based on whose names were recommended. And so it's like, in that, I hate to say it's not fair, but like, at the end of the day, I think a lot of like jazz musicians are going to get called either at the last minute from places to fill voids, to do something here and there, you know, and it's going to be a lot of like, take it at whatever this budget is going to be kind of a thing. I don't think that a lot of sort of consideration was taken to the jazz community and the artists as far as, you know, really supporting us in that way. And I'm putting on my jazz vocalist hat, you know?
Yeah.
So,
You know, I've told my board that jazz is looking more and more like rock and roll every day when it comes to planning. You know, how rock and rollers do everything on the fly. And some, you know, jazz, that's what it's been looked like in the last 2 or 3 months. It's just, you know, everything's happening at the end and right before, and it's tough for musicians because you have to schedule your gigs, et cetera, et cetera. So.
I'm just, you know, and maybe that's not surprising. I mean, in a perfect world, all this would have been set up months ago. Everybody would know have their marching orders. But somehow I'm not real surprised that it's playing out this way. I mean, does that make sense? I mean,
I'm not surprised at all.
yeah.
I'm not surprised at all. But, you know, on the flip side, what if FIFA didn't come?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah, I like to look at these opportunities. Really, it's testing the capacity of what kind of city Kansas City is. I mean, we can talk about the jazz community, but this is a huge citywide thing. So we're just one element of it.
Right.
And there are other people experiencing other things in different industries and disciplines, especially like if you think about the small businesses and entrepreneurs trying to figure out how they're going to take advantages that aren't even artists. And that's one thing that I think we had the luxury of, the wisdom of kind of saying, okay, we've seen how this played out before. Let's think about it. Let's be optimistic about it. But
Also be a little cautious.
we know how this might work. And I think that for the foundation in particular, that probably comes from being in the 18th Divine District and being in this. We have a very distinct community that has a very distinct experience when it comes to all this stuff. So even our experience is different than what you might experience at the Folly or at the Kauffman or whatever. It's we kind of expect a certain thing, so we kind of go into it with that. But it's also something that works in our favor because where my counterparts here are maybe single spaces or organizations, to have a community like 18th Divine, it's easy for us to say, oh, it's the 18th Divine District. So if somebody just lands here on a humbug, there's a chance of them coming to see us or patronize one of the businesses because we have an actual district that's a destination for people, even with the construction and partner. But it's still a thing of us kind of having a healthy pessimism of this is the history of it, this is how it's gone. And when it comes to jazz in particular, we've kind of observed that the city, and people always say, what do you mean by the city? Because I can be talking about anything. I can be talking about the mayor. Us as a collective, the city, it's like we put jazz on as a cool hat. We want to show it off to somebody. But the investment in the infrastructure, do you really mean this? Is this really a calling card for Kansas City? That is not there. And I think that's one place where us as organizations are looking at maybe how do we strengthen our own value so we can start coming to the table like, well, we already have this, you can support it, instead of we need you to do that. So but that's foundation history. So it's kind of like something I'm inbred with here, but I think we're starting to see it as a community as a whole.
You really like hit the nail on the head of sort of like, when big things happen and then all of a sudden everybody is like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We're Jazz Town.
We got something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's put our jazz hats on now, and call up the people that. And I'm guilty, and I get calls. But I'm a jazz singer, and I don't do it. I don't put my hat on every day. I am. That's what I do. But like, you're absolutely right, and I think for me, what sort of I really just carry in my heart, and I'm so passionate about is getting people to understand where the history and how important it is and what this city means to other people outside of Kansas City. Like, I use Paris as an example because that's where I go. I've been there several times, and every time I mention what I do and where I'm from, it's like an immediate respect. And I'm like, I get to get on the bandstand, and people want to hear me sing, and people want to come up and jam, because they're like, oh, jazz, Kansas City, swing, Charlie Parker, they want to talk to me about it, and they want to talk about, I bet you there's so many cool places to play, and I bet you this, and I bet you that. And, I'm like, well, there used to be.
Hey, these people that come in like John Beasley, John Beasley loves playing here in Kansas City. He loves playing with the jazz orchestra, and they know, and they want to be here, and it's.
So as we walk away from this FIFA conversation, I'm thinking what Andy Griffith used to say on his show back in the day, which was, "Don't overexpect." Is that where we are?
The point I was really trying to make is that there are, I believe, with foreigners coming from, outside of this country, there are gonna be people that are coming to Kansas City and they're gonna want to see jazz. Like I do believe that.
Yeah, for sure.
That there are gonna be people that want to go and see and find jazz. And that is sort of what I feel some of the business clubs and business owners have not quite gotten yet. And what I fear is that it's going to become either they put together this bastardization of what they want to put, a jazz group together, or, because they either waited to the last minute or they were, sticking to the putting butts in seats instead of the creative programming around what's happening, you know what I mean? And so
I want to begin to wrap up here, but how are people coming here, how are our visitors going to know where to go hear and see jazz? Is there a clear answer to that?
There is a calendar.
There's a calendar.
There's a calendar.
And I think anybody would do what I would do when I go to a new town. If I want to see jazz, I'm going to go to Facebook. I'm going to go to the internet. I'm going to type in jazz clubs in Kansas City. I'm going to type in, look and see who's like, there are people, if you know how to use Google and you know how to use.
And will that work? Will that work?
I think so. If we do what we need to do as organizations and make sure that our stuff is up to date, and then we've got our calendars and our, things up to date, and we provide places for people to go and things to do.
I would say that is one thing I'm definitely optimistic about is the world understands, handheld media. Everybody's going to go to their phone for whatever. Exactly. And I've been working closely with Casey 2026 on how their app's functioning when it comes to the arts, because I'm part of the arts task force, whatever. But so I do think we have that working in our favor. But as was mentioned before, it's about, are we ready? Because one thing we have to understand is it's a 33-day event or whatever. So the first wave of people are going to influence the second wave of people. Second wave, for each team that comes in each game. So the reputation can grow even that fast, especially when it comes to authentic American experiences. Some of the conversations I've had with people from other countries, because the people that are traveling here are mostly, you're going to find extremely cultured people. They're, no one's flying halfway around the world and just doesn't have some kind of culture, so they're looking for those things. So I think that works in our favor too, especially when it comes to jazz music. So I think, again, it's just about having something and being ready and mastering what you have and just taking advantage of what does come. And one thing I want to say about this, when the whole World Cup conversation started after we won the bid for hosting it here, the conversation was, how do we use World Cup to benefit Kansas City and our community after that?
Yeah.
This is the setup.
That's right.
So we need to be looking at so when people leave here and it's next year, I had a great time in Kansas City. I'm going back on vacation. I went to the Green Lady Lounge. I went to the, that's kind of, we got to look at the long-term game too here. It's not just about those 30 days or so,
Well, what I was going to say, and thank you for bringing that up, because really, that's the opportunity here, is what can we teach Kansas City about Kansas City? Okay, we're going to have an opportunity. We're going to have extra funding. We're going to have an influx of cash. And there's a lot of people that still don't know what's in their backyard. So that's really the opportunity here, is teaching Kansas City about Kansas City.
Right, yep.
They may have heard of it. They might actually get out and do it when they see it on TV or they hear about it. It sucks, but it's the truth. Like, that might be the deal. And so it's not just about, I think that is the long tail. And then when we think about like the opportunity of the bringing the groups together, that's the other thing. There's a lot of opportunity everybody's trying to seize, but how can we keep this collective idea going forward so we can expand about it? And so that's really the next chapter.
Anything from the audience you want to ask? Just wanted before. Well, as we wrap, BJ, I want to commend you for spearheading this coordinated effort on behalf of KC Jazz Alive. It's important work, and it sounds like it's long overdue. It's needed, hasn't been done for a long time. So just hats off to you for pushing and making it happen. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for sharing some great thoughts, and it's good to get this on tape, and hopefully it'll help some folks down the road. So give them a round of applause. Great. Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
All right.